Sugar and spice is everything nice, but Sylvia Plath brings that dirty dirt. Now, today's poem is bitter and resentful, and that's why we read Sylvia Plath. But no, there is a little bit of tonality to some of it that is going to come across as offensive with some of the words that are employed. The reason I chose in the reading portion of this presentation to put the emphasis on the syllables where the emphasis was put is because I believe that tone is really in the poem. I really do believe that is what is in there, and I'm going to make a point about that in the analysis section. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in 3 separate playlists here on the channel. Number 1 being the poetry discussion playlist, now approaching 700 videos strong. Number 2 being the Sylvia Plath playlist here on the channel, a playlist dedicated to the poems of Sylvia Plath, and finally 30 must-read poems. The 30 must-read poems series all contain a biography, a breakdown of the type of poetry that poet writes, and finally an analysis on the poem itself. So, who was Sylvia Plath? Sylvia Plath was born October 27, 1932, in Boston, Massachusetts. Her father, Otto, was a German-born entomologist who was 47 when she was born and published a book about bumblebees when Sylvia was 2. Her mother, Aurelia, went to college with the hopes of being a writer. She graduated with a bachelor's of secretarial science. She would return to college, earn a Master's of Arts in English and German. Sylvia's brother, Warren, was born in 1935. Shortly after Sylvia turned 8, Otto, her father, would die of complications related to diabetes. That same year, Sylvia would publish her first poem in Boston Herald's children's section. And subsequently she would publish several more times before going off to college in 1950, when she would attend Smith College, where again she would continue to publish. And in the publishing world, she did so well for herself that she earned herself a guest editor position at Mademoiselle magazine. But Plath didn't take well, whether it was the new city, New York, or the work, or possibly personalities. She would have a self-harm incident, and then, in August of 1953, at the age of 20, Plath was turned down for a writing program at Harvard. After this, it seemed she had a major depressive episode, leading to Plath receiving electroconvulsive therapy treatments. And she would, shortly thereafter, make an attempt on her own life. She then spent 6 months in psychiatric care receiving more ECT and insulin shock therapy before returning to college to finish her senior year. Subsequently, she would graduate summa cum laude in English in 1955. She would also win a Fulbright Fellowship for English at Newnham College, Cambridge, and she left for England that fall. In February of the next year, she would meet Ted Hughes at a party in Cambridge. They were married June 16th, but they kept it a secret for fear that Plath might lose her fellowship. June of the next year, the two moved to the United States. And in 1958, they settled in Boston with Plath working as a receptionist while the two wrote, and they would also get to know Robert Lowell and Anne Sexton at the same time. December of the next year, the couple moved back to London, and on April 1st, 1960, Sylvia gave birth to their daughter, Frida. The following October, Plath's first collection, The Colossus, was published. It is now recognized as a momentous occasion in the literary world. But that event was just prior to momentum of a different kind in the troubled poet's life. The next year, Plath had a miscarriage and told her therapist that Hughes physically abused her prior to the event. Not long after that, she finished her novel, The Bell Jar, and a few months after that, she gave birth to her son, Nicholas. This, too, would be beset by misfortune, as in the summer of 1962, Plath would get into a car wreck which she later said was not an accident, and the next month she found that Hughes was having an affair. Plath became consumed with her work and moved back to London with her children, where eventually her depression would return and take control. She couldn't sleep and lost substantial weight, and her doctor, fearing the worst, assigned her a live-in nurse. But the morning the nurse was scheduled to arrive, Plath lined the door to her kitchen by taping towels along the openings and turned the gas on to her oven. That morning, February 11th, 1963, Sylvia Plath took her own life while her children were sleeping just feet away. Sylvia Plath is most known for confessionalist poetry, but much of her poetry also happens to be existentialist poetry. Confessional poetry is the poetry of the personal, or I. This style of writing emerged in the late 1950s and early 1960s and is associated with poets such as Robert Lowell, Sylvia Plath, Anne Sexton, and W.D. Snodgrass. Lowell's book, Life Studies, was a highly personal account of his life and familial ties and had a significant impact on American poetry. Plath and Sexton were both students of Lowell and noted that his work influenced their own writing. An existential poem confronts the fundamental questions of human existence, exploring themes of alienation, absurdity, and the search for meaning in an indifferent universe. It delves into the subjective experiences of individuals grappling with their own mortality, freedom, and isolation. By mirroring the complexities of human consciousness, existential poetry seeks to illuminate the existential condition, offering introspective reflections on the human condition and the complexities of life. You do not do any more, black shoe in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or achoo. Daddy, I have had to kill you. You died before I had time. Marble heavy, a bag full of God, ghastly statue with one gray toe, big as a Frisco seal, and a head in the freakish Atlantic, where it pours bean green over blue in the waters off beautiful Nauset. I used to pray to recover you. Ach du! In the German tongue, in the Polish town, scraped flat by the roller of wars. But the name of the town is common, my Polak friend. Says there are a dozen or two. So I never could tell where you put your foot, your root. I never could talk to you. The tongue stuck in my jaw. It stuck in a barbed wire snare. Ich. I could hardly speak. I thought every German was you, and the language obscene. An engine chuffing me off like a Jew to Dachau, Auschwitz, Belsen. I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. The snows of Tyrol, the clear beer of Vienna, are not very pure or true, with my gypsy ancestress, and my weird luck, and my Tarok pack. I may be a bit of a Jew. I have always been scared of you, with your Luftwaffe, your gobbledygoo, and your neat mustache, and your Aryan eye, bright blue, Panzerman. Panzerman, oh, you. Not God, but a swastika, so black no sky could squeak through. Every woman adores a fascist. The boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you. You stand at the blackboard, Daddy, in the picture I have of you, a cleft in your chin instead of your foot, but no less a devil for that. No, not any less the black man who bit my pretty red heart in two. I was 10 when they buried you. At 20, I tried to die and get back to you. I thought even the bones would do, but they pulled me out of the sack and they stuck me back together with glue, and then I knew what to do. I made a model of you, a man in black with a Mein Kampf look, and a look of the rack and the screw, and I said, I do. So, Daddy, I'm finally through. The black telephone's off at the root. The voices just can't worm through. If I've killed one man, I've killed two. The vampire who said he was you and drank my blood for a year, 7 years, if you want to know. Daddy, you can lie back now. There's a stake in your fat, black heart, and the villagers never liked you. They're dancing and stamping on you. They always knew it was you, Daddy. Daddy, you bastard. I'm through. So, Daddy by Sylvia Plath is a very, very, very talked about poem. It is a poem that is probably one of her best known poems. I think it is her best known poem, but a lot of people have different opinions on that. And a lot of the discussion here centralizes around Nazism, okay? Obviously, that's a very big thing that happens in the poem. I don't really find it compelling because I don't think that it is exactly what is being talked about. I think hatred is what is being talked about. There is a lot of discussion about, is this really about her father? Is this poem really about Daddy? Is this poem about Daddy as a way to get at Ted Hughes, right? I don't find those discussions particularly compelling because I don't care about that. I don't care about the biography portion of most poetry at all. There's a lot of discussion about the Electra complex and Freud, etc. And that's interesting enough, but it's not where I want to go today. What I want to talk about here starts with the idea of confessional poetry. So, Sylvia Plath, very famously, is sort of the standard bearer for what confessional poetry is, and is such a strong example of confessional poetry that many people, you can't take a community college creative writing course without meeting 4 or 5 Sylvia Plaths in your class. Um, confessional poetry. When was the last time that you confessed something that you wanted to be true? When was the last time you confessed something that you thought was good? When was the last time you confessed something that was particularly pleasing? It's not what a confession is. So that's just worth keeping in the back of your mind as we make this discussion. So here's where the sort of, I think a lot of unfortunate talk happens with this poem, because I think that it is real in this poem. You can point to it in this poem, but I don't think that it is literal in this poem. This is very nasty. I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. I may be a bit of a Jew. There's a lot of anti-Semitic type language, a lot of racist type tonality towards Jewish people. And the way I did the reading, I read that in because I really think it's there, but I don't think it's exactly the mechanism that's being toggled. It would be easy to assume this as just straight up anti-Semitism, right? It would be easy to assume this as straight up racism, except that here there's that talk throughout the poem. There's the talk of Nazism throughout the poem. Everyone knows that a woman loves a fascist. And then we get to these two lines. I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. I may be a bit of a Jew. What is going on there? Well, she's described Daddy as German and as a Nazi. So, when our speaker says, you are a Nazi, you are a fascist, you are one of these people who are racist against Jewish people, I am a Jew. So it is accepting onto the speaker, onto the self, the hated identity. She is adopting it and becoming it. So, Daddy, you must hate me. That's what's going on with this sort of Semitic conversion in this text. And then we end the text with this revelation that, Daddy, Daddy, you bastard, I'm through. I don't care. So she goes from, I am the thing you hate, give me that attention, to I'm through. Now, do we believe our speaker here? I'm not sure I do, but we'll get back to that. So that's where the poem ends. The poem ends with hatred. The poem ends with, well, the speaker wants us to believe that the poem ends with nothingness, right? I'm through. I'm just done. I'm cutting off ties. Very difficult to accept that statement as true when we've just walked through the poem that we've just walked through. So, take a step back from the poem. What just happened here? A lot of interesting language, a very good rhythm from the poem, but okay, maybe Dad was a bad guy. Maybe that's the point of the poem. Maybe Vampire Ted was a bad guy. Now, those can all be points of the poem. Those can both be the reason the poem is written, but they're not very compelling. And on top of that, not being very compelling, let me out this person as a bad guy. It's not confessionalist. Not that every Sylvia Plath poem has to be quote-unquote confessionalist, but it's not confessionalist to say my dad was a jerk. It's not confessionalist to say my ex-husband is a jerk. Where is the confession there? Well, I think really what we're doing is getting at something a little bit different because of this repeating appeal to, so it's almost an appeal to mercy as much as an appeal to authority. Saying daddy. You call someone daddy, well, let's not go down the daddy route, but you call your father daddy, you were looking for mercy. You were looking for mercy as an appeal to his authority. So it sets up a bit of a strange conundrum. Obviously, there is an ironic reading into this word as well throughout this poem. But I think that the literal reading is there in tandem. So we do have it there, that this appeal to mercy, this appeal to authority by referring to the father as daddy, daddy, daddy. But that's not a confession either. It just gives you a little bit of a mindset for our speaker. If there's any confession, literal confession in the poem, it is when the speaker says, if I've killed one man, I've killed two. That kind of glosses over, right? And it's not really what's going on in the poem. It's just kind of I would say it's kind of a throwaway line. I think it's a good jab in there, but it's not all that, it's not all that long lasting in the poem. So I don't think that's really the confession that we're talking about here. And then we have the speaker claiming Jewish status. Well, I don't think that's a confession because it is the speaker adopting the Jewish status in order to get back at the father. So we've got all of these nasty things going on. An ironic reading of the name of the phrase daddy, paired with an appeal to mercy by using the word daddy over and over again. A confession, if you will, of killing two people. There is the adopting the hated status just to get back at the daddy figure. Here's a question. Have you ever had one of those why am I like this moments? I get them all the time. I spend half of my day being a crusty old man, and I spend the other half of the day being super awkward. And sometimes I will do something that is super rude, but it's not because I'm trying to be rude. I just don't recognize that I have acted this way, right? I'm not a people person, and it doesn't strike me as rude in the moment. And then later, I'll be sitting there thinking, like, that situation, that interaction did not go well. Did I ruin something? And I'll realize that there was probably a very large rude thing that I did in that interaction. It's like, why am I like this? Why am I like this? That I am so awkward that people will just assume I'm rude because I also look, I've got RBF like to the 10th degree. So oftentimes that poses a problem in my life. And later I have to say, look, why am I like this? Why am I doing this? Why do I act this way? But it's so genuinely me that it's difficult for me to recognize in the moment. And the regret afterwards is so genuine that, boy, I really don't like it. The same way that you wouldn't like something that you had to confess. I think that the actual confession in this poem might be a "why am I like this" confession. This poem is so nasty. This poem is so mean-spirited. This poem is so vindictive. I think that might be the point of this poem. Now, it's easy to say that it's vindictive. It's easy to say that it's nasty. We don't know everything that the speaker went through at the hands of Daddy and Vampire Ted. That's true. That's true. But that's not where wisdom comes from, is it? It's difficult to make that as an ironic twist, isn't it? Ironic twists being sort of maybe the best thing about poetry, maybe the one thing about poetry that from maybe Shakespeare onward would be considered as worthy of being in the definition of poetry. The irony there. On top of that, if the point of this poem is, why am I like this? Then it's a very meta statement too, because, guys, I don't think you can read this poem and disagree with the speaker, right? And we all have these moments. We all have these times where we really want to get back at someone. We all have these moments where we really want to stick it to somebody. So when we're in this mindset with this speaker going through this poem, we're on her side, baby. We're right there with her. We transform into the speaker. We are empathetic. We are sympathetic. And so, by the end of the poem, when the point seems to be, at least to me, why am I like this? Then it's not your speaker asking, why am I like this? It is your reader, your audience asking, why am I like this? Which, man, that is a neat trick. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.